And we are following breaking news. Israel launching direct strikes against Iran in a high-stakes retaliation to Tehran's ballistic missile barrage earlier this month. The IDF says it hit precise military targets, but the strikes did not include energy infrastructure. So Iran is reporting 2 soldiers were killed and 3 provinces were hit, but the damage, they say, was limited. All of this comes as President Biden has been urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to make a proportional response to Iran's attack that would deter future attacks against Israel. This just after Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to the region this week, seeking to revive efforts for 2 ceasefire deals, one between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, the other between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, the problem lies in that Israel cannot achieve a total military victory, and Hamas and Hezbollah are not willing to surrender to Israel's terms. That's creating a recipe for a seemingly never-ending war. Joining me now to discuss is retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, Senior Fellow at Defense Priorities. So glad that you're here. We've got so much going on in this region to talk about. So let's start here. Do you think that Netanyahu honored Biden's wishes for a proportional strike against Iran? And do you think that Blinken's visit helped temper Israel's retaliation? What do you think about those 2 questions?
Well, it certainly looks that way. And you also had Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was also speaking with Yoav Gallant, the defense minister for Israel, in the days before this. And he was actually saying, you know, I think that he's going to be listening to me. I think that he's taken my considerations or my concerns into consideration before they had struck. And based on what Israel has actually struck and the limited number of targets, the limited number of damage, I think that whether that was independently decided by Netanyahu or whether he was compelled and coerced into it by the United States is unclear. But I think that right now we have dodged a bullet for the moment, because I think an escalation of this would have been catastrophic for the region, for Israel and the United States. So I think that this was definitely the right call. But of course, everything depends on what happens next, because you had one of the Iranian governmental leaders saying that even though it was a smaller strike, it still killed 2 of our troops, and we'll respond at a time of our choosing. But we may wait until Israel gets bogged down in both Hezbollah and in Lebanon.
Secretary Blinken also urged Israel for a deal to end the war in Gaza, but with U.S. support still strong, you know, we're looking at the real reason that there is for Israel to compromise. What could that be?
Well, look, listen, for Israel, I think my military assessment is that they have bit off way more than they can chew with all of these different fronts of this war, by their account, a 7-front war. And they simply couldn't afford another one. And that could actually be one of the primary reasons why Israel didn't go hard and heavy after Iran, because that almost certainly would have precipitated a large response from Iran back into Israel, which its various levels of air defense system probably could not stop. But you look at what's going on actually in the Gaza Strip right now and in southern Lebanon, and those are both huge military tasks that it's going to be very difficult to see how Israel accomplishes them militarily. So while you got the U.S. saying, hey, we need a ceasefire in both of these places for a humanitarian cause, if nothing else, because of the massive civilian cost in the Gaza Strip especially, Israel so far has shown no willingness to hesitate at all, and they are both continuing to fight on both grounds in both of those 2 locations.
You know, officials have said there could be another limited ceasefire with the release of a handful of hostages. Everybody is focusing on that as well. It's so important, and we all want to know what's going to happen next. Do you think that that could be a better option than waiting for the release of everyone at once?
Anything. If you get 1 hostage back, that's something that we should seize without hesitation. And anything that even for a period of time stops the killing on the ground inside of Gaza, it should be welcomed with open arms by the United States and certainly the global community as well. Because that gives you the room and the space for possibly getting more negotiations. But we have to understand, and this has been one of the sticking points, any negotiation means you have to take and give. Both sides have to get something out of negotiations, or there never will be any. And I think until Israel is willing to say, hey, we'll give in on this here, and then Hamas has to be willing on its side to say, we'll give in here, then I'm afraid that the killing and the destruction is going to continue on.
I wanted to ask you about Israel's fight against Hezbollah, because over the past several weeks, Israeli strikes have killed much of Hezbollah's top leadership. So, do you think that Israel's goal with Hezbollah is the same with Hamas? Annihilate the group completely? Do you think that's the goal?
Well, that's what they've said. I mean, I'm talking top governmental leaders have said we want to destroy Hezbollah. I'm talking Yoav Gallant from the ground inside of Lebanon. I believe it was on October the 9th that he said that we had that on our show not too long ago. So you have the Minister of Defense in military kit saying that's the objective. And that's one of the reasons I say I think they've bitten off more than their military can chew, because emotions aside, that is an enormous military task to go all the way up to the Litani River or the Alawi River, which is even further north, as Israel has given evacuation orders that far north. And they are taking quite a bit of casualties there. It doesn't get a lot of Western press, but when you look at some of the Israeli media where they report that, there's a lot of losses so far and not that much gain on the ground. So this is going to be a long, long struggle if they try to win a military victory.
I was just going to ask you if you thought it was achievable, so thank you for answering my next question. We got to leave it there, though. Senior Fellow at Defense Priorities, retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right.